Welcome to the Path to Be Well podcast, a podcast about being well. I'm Doug Rawson. Join me, Mark Tremblay and Paul Clory, as we provide tips, tools, and strategies while answering your questions with the goal of helping 100,000 people who suffer from a chronic medical condition fulfill a better quality of life by considering the safe use of cannabis in their treatment plan. This information session is intended for individuals who are generally in good health, are generally well-adjusted, are functioning effectively, and are not in need of medical treatment, including for mental health disorders. This information session does not involve the diagnosis or treatment of any medical condition or mental disorder and does not prevent, cure, or treat any mental disorder or medical disease. Further, this session is not a substitute for therapy, counseling, psychoanalysis, medical treatment, substance abuse treatment, or the advice or services of a medical professional. It is your responsibility to seek independent guidance from medical professionals to the extent necessary. In this podcast episode, Paul and I bring awareness to our roadmap to wellness. We focus on the second stage, be aware, and precisely the third step titled My Sleep. For more information about sleep hygiene best practices, you can download free resources and have them delivered to your inbox. Visit weedwell.co/map3 or send us a text message to 705-805-8264 with the message #map3 to have the link sent to you. If you have a topic that you'd like covered in a future podcast episode, please send us a text message at 705-805-8264. Now, let's join in the conversation. Paul, good day. We're back again for another episode of our weekly podcast episodes. Paul, we committed, it's 3 weeks ago now, that we began doing our weekly podcast episodes. We did have a couple week hiatus there, enjoying the summer sun, but we're really helping people down the roadmap to wellness with the focus of the path to be well. And our first 2 weeks, we focused on our first stage, and the first stage to our path to wellness being Be Clear. And really, the Be Clear stage is really about gaining clarity on your current state of health by completing the health selfie. And we're now moved into our second stage. And the second stage is called Be Aware. And we want to make sure that everyone understands that your journey is your journey. Don't rush through the process. And really, our real focus here in the Be Aware stage is really for those people who are really skeptical about information. They're skeptical about the amount of information, where to go, and they read and hear so much and what to believe. And how that really relates to their medical condition and how they can really start a treatment with cannabis. And what we're really trying to achieve in this stage, this Be Aware stage, is understand your current state of health, what we talked about in our last two stages in the Be Clear. And don't worry about the treatment. Let's just focus on what are your goals? What do you want to achieve? Let's create a path that makes sense to you moving forward. Now, we're going to cover that in the next couple of weeks together, Paul. But I just wanted to add some clarity that this week, as we dive into stuff, it's really about be aware, and it's really about understanding your health. And Paul, I don't know, earlier today when you said we had to do this week's podcast episode, I was going to cancel, and I was going to tell you I couldn't do it. And the reason why, Paul, is I had a really bad sleep last night. And I just tossed, I turned, I couldn't get my sleep. And I actually was embarrassed to tell you I couldn't come, that I didn't want to come and do this today, because today's episode is all about sleep. And when I saw the stuff that you compiled and you got together and you said we're going to talk about it, I said I should go because it might help me have a better sleep tonight. Kidding aside, and I did have a bad sleep, but kidding aside, the reason why we have a conversation about sleep is from our experience. If you have a bad sleep, it just compounds everything else. It amplifies everything else. So we're not mitigating other conditions. We're really saying this whole module and stage and focus about be aware. We want you to be thinking about everything, whether you have a mental health condition, anxiety, PTSD, depression, or you suffer and deal from Parkinson's, MS, chronic pain, acute pain, epilepsy, it doesn't matter. we're saying we want you to take the time and energy to focus and be aware of your medical condition. But today, Paul, we're here to talk about sleep.
Sleep it is. But I'll go back a step and you've introduced kind of who the person is in the be aware stage. I just wanted to talk a little bit about that and tie that in. And so you talked about the skepticism of the amount of information. What I want to highlight though is we're still talking about you. We're still not yet to the point of considering cannabis as an alternative to your chronic medical condition. And there's a reason for that. We talked about the stages, be clear, or be aware, piggybacking off be clear. And we talked over the past couple episodes, really taking the time and getting a handle on your health self and your medications. And that is understanding where you are here and now today. Be aware. Yes, we're going to talk about sleep, as you mentioned. We're going to give you some tips, but it is the next step to where do I see myself in the future? And be aware, if we had to sum up in a milestone, a key milestone to be aware is setting a health goal. And a health goal, by definition, is somewhere you see yourself in the future. And so you might be doing okay today. You might be doing subpar today. You might be doing very poorly today. But somewhere in the future, it's going to be better. You want to feel better. You want to get better. You want to find that solution. And going through this exercise and be aware and getting some of those tools is going to help you derive a better place, a good place somewhere in the future, and really getting, and this is next week's topic as well, getting a solid health goal in place. And so, that's be aware in a nutshell. So we've done the legwork to understand where we are here and now in be clear. Now we're starting to look in the future in be aware.
Paul, thanks for that. Our roadmap has 12 steps, and we call them 12 micro wins. We call them 12 steps and forward progress you can make on your health journey. And I love how you intertwine the be clear into the be aware. Like, these are small, each step is a small step, and they're all little wins we want you to get along the way, all about helping you on your own health journey. And appreciate you adding that clarity to the be aware stage. What you got for us, Paul?
So I'll start with, because I know you like this page, our manifesto page. How about I start with something there? And we're beginning to now look into the future. We've done the legwork to figure out where we're here and now. And so I like the one, I control what my future path looks like. Anything is possible. And you know what? We're in Be Aware, we're developing that idea of that. Where is my feel better place in the future? Slowly we'll add clarity to that, and we'll actually draw the map. But so right now, we're just going to start looking into the future. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, we do have to talk about sleep, as it is one of the our mini or our micro goals that we want to accomplish in Be Aware. And so it's accompanied to a roadmap as well. And this is going to be attached to roadmap number 3. In the Be Aware, it's the first micro step or the first micro goal that we're looking for, and the resource associated with that, and Doug will tell you how to get that in just a second. But the resource associated with that is a sleep diary, and within that sleep diary is a number of things that you can do to improve, we'll say, potentially your sleep. And this is just hygiene type items. So Doug, I'll leave it to you for a second. You'll go through all the how to text and that, and then we'll jump right into the document itself.
Yeah, for sure, Paul. So the resource that Paul's talking about is going to come to you via email. And you can get that by going to weedwell.co/map3. Again, that's weedwell.co/map3. And you're going to get a PDF download of the sleep diary that Paul is talking about right now. If you're not handy to your computer and you want to send us a text message, we welcome that as well. And you can send us a text to 705-805-8264. And in the message, put hashtag MAP3. Again, send us a text to 705-805-8264 with a message hashtag MAP3, and we'll give you a direct link where you can download the PDF resource that Paul is now walking us through on the sleep diary.
So I am excited about this sleep diary. I think, for giving us an email or sending us a text, I think what you'll receive is very valuable. I think there's a lot of value to this. But let me try to fill in why I think it's so good. If you picture, we have check boxes through the days of the week, Monday through Sunday. And with each checkbox, it's essentially a yes or no, but we're looking at 12 things. This resource is going to give you 12 ideas. You don't even have to start taking sleeping pills or cannabis or anything like that. 12 things you can do before you even start considering medication. And, the first one, this is going to seem silly. Did you keep a sleep schedule? And so we, as humans, follow a sleep-wake cycle. And the more you play with that, potentially the more issues you may have just falling asleep or staying asleep. And so when we talk about keeping a sleep schedule, and especially if you have kids at this time of year, school's out and you might delve away from that, but try to keep that sleep schedule. So if you're an 11 o'clock to 7 a.m. sleeper, keep that schedule. Even if you go on vacation, try to keep that. Have fun, of course. You're on vacation, but try to keep that sleep schedule. Here's a second one. Did you create a bedtime ritual? And so those simple things that can be relaxing or get you set up for that night of sleep. So for people, that might be having a bath. And so some of those bath soaps are contain products like lavender and stuff like that. Well, these terpenes in there actually do assist in sleeping, and they assist in calming things down, if you will. For other people, the bedtime ritual might be, I'm reading that book. So I'm doing some light reading before bed. But any activity that we picture slowing things down and getting into that a relaxed state, if you will. And so those are the first two things. Did you want to add anything to that, Doug, before we go on?
Yeah, good conversation. As you're saying that, Paul, I go back in my own mind about what I can do. But I just want to emphasize one thing here. From our experience, and it's documented, 20 to 25% of the population, 1 in 4 people are dealing with sleep issues. And this is huge. And from my experience, I would say nearly half of the people we have had the pleasure of dealing with have experienced at some point in time along their own health journey complications or problems due to their sleep. So the tools and the ideas that you're recommending and suggesting walking through right now, don't take them lightly. Because truly, if you have a poor sleep, it does amplify everything the next day. If you wake up tired, you wake up groggy, we tend to want to reach for something to help, right? I'm anxious, so let's grab an anti-anxiety pill. I'm in pain, and I find if we can focus and have a good restful sleep, things tend not to be as magnified the next day. Paul, the first couple of things you've talked about is really keeping that sleep schedule. It's so important. You mentioned a little while ago about your body has a rhythm, and it does. And following this schedule per se is going to maximize your return on that. Same as the ritual you talked about, Paul, about, whether it's a bedtime lavender bath is example, these just complement your ability to have a good sleep. And there is no one solution. What you're helping us understand and guide us on is find the route that works for you. And if that's reading, a bath, walking the dog, whatever that is, look at implementing something and doing it. But I'll also say, Paul, you mentioned a while ago that there's 12 things. We're also not saying do all 12 tonight. we're saying, take some baby steps here. Like use the guide that you're talking about. And maybe this week, just pick one of the things, right? So if it's a bedtime ritual, pick one ritual idea and just implement it and try to do as many times as you can this week. And if you get success, great. If you don't, go back to this and see what we can change and tweak next week.
Just to piggyback off that last point, Doug, is, I would strongly recommend you don't try too many. The idea is you want to find out which one works or which two work for you. If you try 6 of them at the same time, you're not going to be able to figure out which of the 6 actually helped you, right? So to continue down the list, though, avoided a nap in the afternoon. So, what you'll see in literature is if you have to nap, if you're totally done, try not to do it too late in the afternoon and make it very short. Exercise is a promotion of a lot of health benefits, and sleep is one of them. And enough said about that. We want to make sure our sleeping quarters are appropriate for sleep. So is it quiet? Is it dark? Is it comfortable? And that is comfort is from numerous viewpoints. So is the room itself comfortable temperature wise? Is your mattress comfortable? Is your pillow comfortable? These things are all going to assist or take away from a good night's sleep. And so, as much as you can in your own life, these are tools to a very important thing. And so if your pillow's not there, or it's 10 years old and it's been flattened down into a pancake, maybe it's time to get another one, because as you've mentioned already, Doug, if you're not having that good night's sleep, it just carries on into the next day, and you begin chasing your tail. Bad sleep, bad day, continue bad evening, another bad sleep, another bad day, and so on and so forth. So those are, we'll say, the next 4. I'll kind of give a break now if you want to summarize, and we'll get into the last 6.
Hi, Doug here from Weedwell. I wanted to hop in here for a moment as we're excited to share with you how we see our community grow every day. I want to extend a warm welcome to join our community, get tips, tools, and resources while collaborating with others to support you on your health journey. Look for us at weedwell.group. Paul, just something I want to emphasize here is previously I worked with a physician, and this clinician really took a liking to sleep hygiene. And this was kind of their analogy. Often people take a lot of time, energy, effort, and spend a lot of time and money on finding a right pair of shoes. Whether it's Nikes or Reeboks or Natural Balance or Converse, doesn't matter the brand. They spend a lot of time finding the right ones, and they do it for walking, hiking, jogging, whatever it is. But if you think about that from a relative standpoint, the amount of time that they're in those shoes, going for those hikes and walks and everything else, we don't tend to spend the same amount of time on our sleep environment. And we tend to not think about our sleep environment as the pair of running shoes that we invested all that time and energy in for our golf game or tennis game or otherwise. And the things you identified a minute ago about mattress, pillow, environment, lighting, all those things are so important to creating a conducive environment to sleep. You're spending a third of your day sleeping. A third of your day is going to be in this environment that is about sleep, really recharging, re-energizing yourself for the next day. But we tend to pile into our room all this extra noise that is not conducive to the sleeping environment. You've talked about so far about a quiet, dark, relaxing environment, making sure the temperature's good, the bed's good, the pillow's good, all these things are the good. But then we also put in our Netflix and our TV and our computer and our laptop and our phone and all this other extra noise that's contrary to help you get a good, restful sleep. And from my view, Paul, I really appreciated when a clinician says, tell me about bedtime. What does that look like? And when someone says, well, listen, I lie down, I watch Netflix, and I watch all these shoot 'em up movie for the last hour, and then I turn it off and go to bed. Well, what's that look like? Well, I lie there for the next hour. Well, I wonder why. And, when you use the lens of a third of your day is spent in this environment, what we're trying to say is just give it some time and attention, no different than you would the pair of shoes when you went running, jogging, playing basketball, playing golf, whatever that tool is that you're using for those. If you commute to work and you're giving me a car and you want a comfortable car, this is no different. We're just saying take the time and attention. And like you said, Paul, all the things we're talking about today are just ideas for you to consider as you start thinking about your environment, and your sleep hygiene is very important about that.
For sure. And I like the analogy of the Netflix. What do you mean I can't sleep? My heartbeat's going 120 a minute because of all the action in the show. So yeah, it's kind of the opposite of the lavender that I was speaking about before, and calming things down and slowing things down. But let's continue on our list. So the next thing you'll see on the list is avoided caffeine. And so this isn't avoid caffeine altogether, but a caffeine does last quite a long time in your system. And so you don't want to be loading up on coffee or other caffeinated products right through the afternoon and into the evening. It's going to make sleep potentially for you more difficult. Grabbed a snack, you'll see. So this is the idea that, if you're hungry at night, which does happen from time to time, you're not loading up on another large meal, but you would rather just have a small snack. If you're not hungry, don't worry about this one. You don't have to go and grab a snack. That's not what it's saying. Stop looking at the clock. And so, this is one in my own life that I've gone through, and it's easier said than done. I'll tell you, in my own room, what I've done is actually turn the clock away. And it's twofold. Number one, the light. And we're going to get to light, and we've kind of already talked about having a dark room. So number one, the light is out of the way. But number two, if I happen to wake up, I'm not worried about the time. My alarm will get me up when I need to get up. I don't need to check that it's 4:20, 5:15, or what time. My alarm will go blah, 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 and I'll get up. So it's actually turned. I can see it very, very small, but I have to look at the right angle. So stop looking at your clock. Finally, if you can't sleep, so if you wake up and it's 5:15 or you can't fall asleep, this is where we find ourselves looking at the clock or looking around, looking at the ceiling. Leave the room. So that activity that we talked about incorporating, that settles things down. It was the part of the bedtime ritual, right? So if it's reading, bring your book with you, but go to another room. Don't get associated with not falling asleep in that room. Go to another room. So try settling yourself again. Pick up a book. What is that relaxes you? Try for 20 minutes or half hour. Then come back to your room. Use your room for sleep. And then finally, and this is something that we're strong advocates around, all facets of your healthcare, and you'll hear a lot more, especially in Be Progressing, is journal. And so journal your sleep. The next morning, as you had a decent sleep, maybe not decent sleep, or what have you, or what was different, make sure you write it down. The amount of time that it might have taken you to fall asleep. And this isn't to watch the clock. Like I said, we don't want to be watching the clock, but did I fall asleep relatively right away? That tells you your ritual's probably doing okay or helping you. If it took a really long time to fall asleep, then maybe you need to change things before you go to bed, right? But if there was things that were an issue during your night, you want to document this as well. So was it the temperature of your room? Is it that you have a lousy pancake pillow like I talked about previously? And you want to document that. So, you have facets of your sleep before you fall asleep that you want to journal and write about. You will have facets of your sleep as you're sleeping or that you wake up during the night that you want to talk about. And then, you know what? Start writing about how you feel in the morning, especially if you have these small improvements with some of these hygiene items. A half hour doesn't seem like a lot, but that might be the difference between being in a somewhat foul mood to being in a pretty good mood. And you can document how your mood is the next day or how you're feeling physically. I felt like I could exercise more the next day because I had a lot more energy because I had a good rest. And you want to document. So you that as well. So you have your fast before sleep, during sleep, and then after sleep, how you feel. And we're big proponents of journaling. Really all facets of your health, and sleep being one of them.
Paul, I know we brought this sleep into the roadmap because it is so important. And just to go backwards a little bit, we talked about our last stage being Be Clear. And Be Clear is about gaining clarity on your current state of health. And you identified today really this stage, our second stage, the Be Aware, is really about understanding now about your current health and creating health goals that's focused towards your future goal, where you want to end up going to. And why we brought an emphasis to sleep is often we hear people saying, listen, I want to start taking cannabis because I don't want to be on my sleeping pills anymore. I want to be on this because I no longer want to be on that. And often we find that, it's kind of like a Band-Aid solution. And what we're saying here is, let's just take a pause. Let's don't worry about implementing too many new things. Let's really gain some clarity on our current state of health. Let's gain some clarity on what's contributing. What are the factors that's really contributing to this poor sleep? And everything you identified with us today is really journaling that, documenting that, making subtle changes without adding in new things, medications or otherwise. And if you're currently using a sleeping pill, we're not saying stop taking it. We're saying continue using it, but start journaling and start going, what are contributing that you needed to go on that sleeping pill in the first place? Through that lens, hopefully making these small micro steps, we can start going down the path to your own wellness. But this really compounds so many other things, and we want you to get clear on this. And like you identified, journaling is only going to help with that. Now, we talked about some resources, Paul. Just to remind everyone, to get access to these resources, you go to weedwell.co/map3. weedwell.co/map3, or send us a text message to 705-805-8264, and in the message, #MAP3, and we'll be sure to give you access to the sleeping diary that you walked us through this evening. Paul, I think we went through a lot of great content. I think we've covered, in essence, what we're trying to achieve with this first step in the Be Aware stage, which is step 3 of our roadmap. We're already, 3 steps down the path to wellness, Paul. Anything else that you want to bring home as we close up our discussion about Be Aware and with the focus of sleep?
Yeah, you've touched on it. I'll just add a little bit in, and it's still understanding where you are at. And with regards to the sleep in Be Aware, we often see it as, a primary condition that is the main condition that bothers you. But you know what? Just as often, we see it as a result of another condition. And so quite commonly, I have chronic pain, I have restless leg syndrome, I have anxiety, I have depression, and all these things contribute to a poor night's sleep. You mentioned statistics earlier, 25, or you'll see some studies, 25% of the population is having sleep issues. So I think it's very appropriate. We're speaking to 1 in 4 people right now. That's a common problem. And, as we've said so far, and believe me, we're going to get to more action, if you will. But these are action items. They're just subtle action items. I think over our time in a clinical setting, the people are ready to have a pill or have this type of cannabis or whatnot, but we're still understanding ourselves. We're still understanding where we're at, and we can make subtle changes. And believe me, some of these subtle changes can have profound effects that we talked about specifically in this sleep diary. It's not going to happen if you try it tonight or tomorrow night, and all of a sudden you're going to sleep 8 hours. But it's something you want to work at, like everything else that is that tends to be of great benefit. You have to work at it and keep at it once you find that magical solution.
Paul, great conversation today. Again, we focused today on sleep in the stage Be Aware. Next week, Paul, we're going to be back and we're really going to round out the Be Aware stage. And our focus next week is going to be all about setting health goals. And it's really bringing everything we discussed in the last 3 steps, the Be Clear, gaining clarity in your current state of health with the Health Selfie and the medications. And then we talked about sleep today, but sleep is more, right? We talk about your health in general and what are going to be the things that's going to contribute to creating your health goals moving forward. I look forward to that conversation next week, Paul. Until then, be well. Thanks for joining us this week on the Path to Be Well podcast, a podcast about being well. Make sure to visit our website at weedwell.com, where you can subscribe to our show so you never miss an episode. While you're at it, if you found value in this week's show, we'd appreciate you sharing this podcast or leaving a comment or rating. We look forward to you joining us next time. Until then, be well.